What's up, guys? Fati the Afghan Mystic. Okay, so I'm posting a video right now about, well, should be posted by now, talking about grief and my experience with, losing loved ones unexpectedly. Um, but in this video, I kind of want to talk about more how that impacted my spiritual awakening and kind of how I ended up where I am now, which is an intuitive reader, psychic medium, whatever. I always feel weird like labeling stuff, mostly because I think I have imposter syndrome. But at the end of the day, like I believe what I believe and I know what I feel and I know what I know and, how I've practiced, what I've educated myself on and things like that. So I guess if you are in the midst of your spiritual awakening, or you have questions about that, or you feel like you took, like it happened for you with the, loss of somebody unexpectedly, or whatever the case may be, this is this is how it happened for me. um I guess is where I'll start. Ugh, my third eye is like, when I'm in this bedroom, I feel like I have prayed in here so much and I do so many like rituals and meditations and things that I feel like as soon as I step into this bedroom, I'm just like already spaced out. So please forgive me if I look like I'm looking somewhere else, because I am and I don't feel like I'm here right now. Okay, so where to begin? Okay, how did I know I was intuitive? Um, for as long as I can remember, I have, like, literally since childhood, I have spoken about following your intuition and like believing in yourself and following your gut feeling. And I didn't even know what the hell any of that stuff meant. I just always like felt it. I always felt it in my gut. I could feel when people were lying to me. I could feel when intentions were wrong. I could feel when like things felt off. I could feel, when, I don't know, things would happen, or like, feeling the shift of people's emotions, or just like, it's also interesting to look back at where I'm at now, and to look back like to my childhood and my younger years, like, of course, the dance with ADHD and autism and things like that, but also just the level that my intuition was at, just even as a child, and then to see where it's at now, and then to like have those things come together is kind of crazy. Snow, don't do it. My dog's about to bark any second now, even though he knows the people who live in this house. Please, please don't do it. His bark just hurts me so bad. So growing up, I would say that a lot of my family is pretty intuitive and like really good at having a very strong gut feeling. But coming from immigrant families and parents, my family's from Afghanistan, we don't always talk about this stuff. And even up until now, I have to do a lot of like my own research to even like try to understand the history of these things, because once you mix in like religion and politics and then culture, like it all just gets enmeshed and it doesn't make sense. So, in a lot of other people's eyes, I'm a sinner and I'm going to hell, or I'm practicing things that were wrong, even though seers, readers, channelers, mystics have literally been around for centuries and it's literally in our bloodline. So I refuse to believe that there's anything wrong with what I'm doing because I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. In my opinion, the creator made me this way, and there's a reason why I have these abilities and I can do that. But yeah, like I said, from a very young age, I just always felt that I was different. I always felt that I would live a different life and that, I wanted to be an artist, I wanted to be creative. I'm doing those things. Has it been easy? No, but I also feel like I've never really chosen the easy path. Um, I've always been even overcoming struggles with, excuse me, overcoming my struggles with confidence and self esteem and, you know, LOL, I was going to say writer's block for some reason. This could be a message for somebody. Or just like, struggling with my creativity. All of these things I just always had innately inside of me. And I always felt really drawn to doing specific things, to being a specific way. I just always knew that I was going to be different from everybody else around me. And how that has played out is crazy. But I knew it. It's not like I didn't know all along. But I feel like maybe my parents are still in denial, as most parents are. Um, so growing up, I would have like multiple experiences, like paranormal experiences with like spirits, with voices, with energies that I couldn't really explain. And every time I would try to talk to somebody about it in my family, like I would get shut down. Either they would brush me off and tell me I'm tripping, or they'd be like, oh, we don't talk about that, or they would get scared, or just like nobody wanted to talk about it. It wasn't something that was like normally talked about. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe these things exist, but we don't really know how to help you. We don't really know what to say about them. It's just like, it's almost like they couldn't fully believe if it existed or not, even if they had had similar experiences. And so, in multiple houses that I had lived with, family over the years, I feel like I always had, I'm going to call them paranormal experiences because I don't really know what to call them, but I always felt like different energies around. I always felt like, you know, some areas felt creepy and then some areas felt light. And I would literally see things move and I would hear things and I would experience things. And anytime I tried to bring it up, I mean, I get it. It can be jarring. Um, so nobody like really ever wanted to talk about it. And I just, was like, okay, like I always felt like I knew these things were real, but I also, again, never really had anybody to talk to about these things. And I also didn't really understand like the weight of what that meant, right? I was just like, oh yeah, like I guess maybe I didn't consider that not everybody, I don't know, sees spirits or feels spirits or hears spirits or deals with, the dead or have like prophetic dreams and things like that. Like I just didn't realize like how not normal it was, even though I feel like a lot of people in my family, I would definitely call psychic and intuitive. Even my dad, especially my dad, because the amount of times that he found me as a teenager when I did not have a cell phone, okay, and where he found me and how he found me never made sense to me. And I feel like I carried on those abilities whenever I'd be looking for my friends, whenever things would happen and I would lose touch. The way that I even found people sometimes made no sense to me. Like, where was I getting this information? How did I even do any of those things? Like, none of that makes sense to me. It still kind of doesn't make sense to me, but I feel like, after having my dances with death and, the experiences that I've had with the unexpected losses that I've experienced, I would say definitely 2018 was the year that changed everything for me because that was the year that I lost my brother. And then in 2019, I lost my best friend. So just kind of back to back, kind of spiraling. But 2015, I think, also was really a big year because that was the year that my grandfather passed. And me and my cousin, like me and my cousins, and our parents were there like with him during his transition. And so I feel like that was the first time I've ever actually like been present when somebody was transitioning over. But even when I think back to that time, it didn't feel, I don't know, it didn't feel weird. Like it felt sacred. Like it felt like the right thing for us to be there. And me and my other cousin, were sleeping in the room with him nightly. And I feel like I also didn't think of the weight of what that meant back then. I feel like it was just innate. Like I felt natural. Like it felt like this is what you do. This is right. Like this makes sense. Even if it was hard, being there, being supportive, being just in that energy for some reason just felt okay. And so I feel like definitely when my grandfather passed, I had a lot of my own guilt and sadness to work through with that. And I feel like, of course, I don't think that ever goes away fully because you always wish that you were better. You always wish that you spent more time. You always wish that you spoke more. But even in those years, like I was a struggling teenager, I was going through my own stuff. I didn't even really know how to like navigate the world outside of myself. And I also didn't really know like how to communicate that. Like I remember, sitting with him in his apartment and just like always wanting to ask questions and always like having all these thoughts and things in my head that I wanted to say, but I could never just like bring myself to say them. So I would just sit there, in his presence. I would just be there. Um, and of course, I wish, that we all would have spent more time together, but you can't really go back, right? And so when he did pass, like I did have multiple, like I've had dreams about him, and I know he's definitely one of my guardians. It's like watching over me. And I know that he is the reason why certain things have happened, where I've been led to certain experiences, especially after, like right after he passed. They're just like signs and symbols, that made sense, that were synchronistic to only him. And I was like, okay. And so I feel like that was a big part. And then, like I said, once my brother and my best friend passed unexpectedly, 1 year apart, like that really sent me into a spiral. And that was also during like COVID times. So I was spending a lot of time at home. I was meditating consistently. I was reading lots of books, listening to lots of podcasts. Um, and then I moved to Virginia like permanently. I think it was the fall winter of 2020. And that was also when I met, serendipitously met, who is now my husband. I literally met him like a month after I moved. And I swear I never would have come to Virginia willingly if it wasn't, for just where things were at in my life, because I always tried to stay away from here. I loved California. I'm California born and bred, baby, But it was time for a change. And when spirit, God, source, universe calls for change, there's very little you can do to stop that. And you can resist as much as you want, but you're just going to make it harder on yourself. Okay. So, I remember having certain dreams about my brother and certain dreams and experiences with my best friend. So, my best friend passed in September of 2019. I do believe that that December, I had gone to New York City with who was one of my very best friends at the time. We're no longer friends. But she and her husband had invited me, on a New Year's trip to go to New York with them for a few days and just like hang out and whatever. And it felt really good. Like I was excited, and I had a little bit of my best friend's ashes with me. And New York was our place. That was one of the only places that we traveled together, and we both ended up there at a hard time in our life. But like it was such a very like special time in our lives to have that together. So when I went to New York, I was like, okay, like the little bit of ashes that I have from him, like I want to spread them in the city, because it just felt right. And so I remember synchronistically like going on this trip to New York with my friends who again was like it was just so random. They're like, you don't have to, we're gonna drive there, we'll pick you up, like just, you know, come with us. And I was like, okay, great. I remember sitting in a cafe. We went to like it was maybe like a French cafe or something that we went to, and we were having breakfast, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden this song just starts playing at a French cafe. Random. Random. Um, so it was the song Amber by 311, and that was like my best friend and I, that was like one of our favorite songs. And that started playing so like just randomly in this restaurant, and I immediately got triggered and I was bawling because I was like, what? Like this song shouldn't even be playing here. Like this makes no sense to me whatsoever. And so that was like, a first like moment of synchronicity where I was like, I feel like he's here with us. Like it just felt so interesting. And I do remember there were a couple of other moments, like other places that we had gone to, like some vintage and thrift shops, and like other places and things like that. And I just remember like feeling so grateful and so connected because I was like, he's definitely here. And then this one night, we were going to a dessert place, and my friend was like, "Oh, well, there's this dessert spot that I really want to go to." And she's like, "We're going to go to that place tonight." And I was like, "Okay, great." So we're walking around the city, and we're in, I think it was like, it wasn't Chinatown specifically, but it was like one of the more like Asian based parts of town. And it looked so familiar. And I was like, I feel like I've been here before. Like, this is so crazy. And she was like, yeah, like, let's just keep walking like it's supposed to be here, blah, blah, blah. And so we go into this market, and it's like a 2-story building, and they have stalls everywhere of like different kinds of food. And I was like, dude, I just really feel like I've been here before. I was like, so weird. Like, it looks so familiar. And then we go upstairs, and she finds a place. And I do believe that it's called The Spot. And it was a dessert bar. And I was shaken to my core because that was the exact same dessert spot that me and my best friend had gone to a couple of years prior to that. Like when we were in New York together, like that was a place that he took me. And this wasn't even like we weren't even supposed to be at that spot this time. Like she was looking for a different place, and it was supposed to not be that place, and we ended up there. And I was like, this is actual insanity, because how does that happen? Like, and of course, we ended up getting like the same desserts and everything. And I was like, you have to take a picture of me here because this is crazy. Because I literally have pictures of me and my best friend, who had passed. Like, I have pictures of us at this exact spot, at this exact table with these exact desserts. And it just didn't make sense. And I was like, how is this even real right now? So I feel like that was a real, like, that played a very big part in me diving deeper into my spirituality, but also diving deeper into, like, you know, what it means to even like be a soul on this planet, and like how are we having these experiences, and how like people are still making contact from the other side, or wherever that other side is. But that like just firmly rooted things, and like, okay, like, your loved ones do make contact, this is real, because there were so many things that happened synchronous. Like, how is this happening? How is this even going on? Like, without some kind of divine intervention or like spirit intervention, right? Um, And so that was a very like pivotal moment for me, I think, because he was my best friend. I missed him so much, and to feel like he was with me on this trip to play that song for me, to take me to these places, to literally take us to the same exact dessert place that we had gone to, that her and I, like, we weren't supposed to be there. Like, she was looking for, I don't know if it was the same place, but like in a different location or what it was, but it wasn't supposed to be that. And I was just floored because I was like, there's so many places in New York City. Like, how did we end up at the one place that him and I had gone to for dessert specifically? Like, it was just, I don't know. It was very, I loved it very much. It was really cool. Um, so like I said, in 2020, I moved permanently to Virginia. Um, oh wait, let me go back. So another experience that I had that kind of started me on the course of like understanding what it means to be psychic, what it means to be a medium, because they are different. Um, I believe the saying goes that all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Because when you're psychic, you're pulling from living energy. You're pulling from the person that you're working with. Like if I'm sitting here doing a reading from you and I'm doing, psychic work, I'm working with your energy specifically. Mediumship is working with passed on loved ones, angelic guides, guardians, like pulling information from a different source that isn't coming from you specifically, if that makes sense. And I know maybe some of you are going to come from me. It's fine. I'm still working on my understanding, but that was the best way that I understood. And so it was either 2018 or 2019 when I stumbled upon this tarot deck that I had bought. I think the year that my grandfather had died, we'd done like a little family drive down to Santa Cruz. And I have an aunt who is, more into spirituality. She does work with healers. She's a massage therapist. Like she's been into crystals and metaphysics and things like that most of my life. And it wasn't even until, these recent years where like that had clicked for me. And I was like, oh my God, like this information has been in front of me this entire time. But I feel like you truly, until you're ready and able and meant to see and experience that, it doesn't matter if it's sitting right in front of you this whole time. Like you're not going to pay attention to it because that's what happened with me. And so I was staying with my sister in law right before I think I had permanently moved to Virginia. And I remember waking up one day and, like, because I was practicing doing readings with this tarot deck. It was just a classic, Rider Waite. And, when I had originally found the tarot deck, I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot I had this. I don't even remember how I found it. I just remembered that, I had purchased it when we went to Santa Cruz, and then I guess I completely forgot about it. And then, when the time came and I started awakening spiritually, when I was meditating more, I was reading more, listening more, I found these cards when I was packing. I was like, let me just start like kind of dabbling into this. So I, dove headfirst into tarot, and I was just kind of messing around, like practicing giving myself readings, and then I was practicing giving like friends readings. And it was really insane. Just like how the energy was coming through, the way like the clarity was, like just the experiences that I was having. And so I remember being with my sister-in-law and staying with her, and she was cleaning her apartment one day, and I was sitting there, at the kitchen table giving myself a reading, and I looked at the cards and I was feeling the energy, and I was like, none of this resonates with me. Like, this doesn't feel like this is for me at all. And then that's when I felt just like very distinct energy and just like messages kind of coming in. And I was talking to my sister in law, and I was like, I think this message is for you. And when I sit down to talk to her, like all of this stuff is coming up and coming out, and she's crying, and I'm crying, and I'm hugging her. And I really felt that it was the energy of my brother, like giving her this message. these messages because I was like, how would I know any of this stuff? Like, none of this pertains to me. I knew immediately when, I was doing the reading that none of this was about me and it wasn't for me. And so that started to like trip me out because I was like, how could I possibly be like feeling this or knowing this or where is this coming from? And so I think it was that, I don't know if it was that winter or another winter. I had gone to North Carolina to go visit the same friend who took me to New York with her and her husband. Over the last, few years since then, I started spending a lot of time in North Carolina. I would like, drive down there for a few days at a time, once or twice a year, whenever I could, and just like go spend a few days there whenever they had time. And I remember her husband asking me if I could give him a reading. And I was like, okay, I'll do it, but just bear with me. And you have to be open minded because, I don't really read for people yet that much. But I was also, just intimidated. But I was like, let me feel like when I feel my energy is right and I'll do it for you. And it was interesting because during that stay, I had experienced like this feeling of like being highly emotional every time he would come into the room or whenever he'd come home from work or wherever he was. Every time he would come home and he would be in the room, I would just feel super emotional when he was around. And I was like, what is that? Like, what am I picking up on? I had no idea. And so, one night we finally sit down to like do his reading. And like, I'm sitting on the floor, he's sitting across from me, and a friend's laying on the couch. And she's just like vibing, and like watching the whole thing. And I'm seeing all this stuff, and all this stuff's coming out. And in my head, I'm like, how could I possibly know this? Like, where is this coming from? Literally, the messages that were coming through were from his grandmother who had recently just passed on. So I was heavily picking up on her energy because they were like this. Like, they were super tight, they were super close. He loved her so much. And it was like a really hard loss for him. And I was like, what the freaking A is going on? Okay. Like, I didn't know what was happening. And then I think it was probably like a couple months after that is, I had started listening to two different podcasts. So, Enlightened Empaths, love them, stand by them wholeheartedly, and Psychic Teachers. And so I had come across them. I had been listening to their podcasts, and I was like, okay, they were doing a mediumship course. And I was like, interesting. I was like, I think I want to do this because I'd really like to understand like what is the difference between being a psychic and being a medium and like how those things, kind of like intermingle and like how those things come to be. And so, once I took this class, I was like, oh, okay, great. Like, I'm a medium. That's crazy. Learning that about yourself and like knowing that you have the ability to access information from people's passed on loved ones that just like come through you sometimes is just kind of crazy. And like, I think that's still hard for me to say because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I still have imposter syndrome where I'm like, there's no way this is happening. But it is. And I have been pushed multiple times by spirit to like dive deeper into that work and into that ability. As I'm saying that right now, I'm like, maybe I should be definitely doing more work and more research and more practice in that and what that means because I don't know, like, I don't think it is to be taken lightly. Of course, if you have these abilities and you feel these things, I don't know, I feel like sometimes you're going to want to do something with it, right? I thought at one point, I was like, oh my God, I finally found my purpose. Like, this is it. I'm going to be a reader. I'm going to be a medium. Like, I'm going to help so many people, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that's a message right now. But I feel like I've never actually, like, I don't know. I don't wonder if I just haven't taken that seriously because I keep talking myself out of it. And I've had multiple experiences up until now that have said, you're a medium, you need to accept that